I never thought I'd be forced to leave the house I grew up in, but there I was, standing in front of my older sister Megan, being told to pack my bags and get out. After our parents passed away, the house was supposed to be shared, but Megan had a different idea. She had already claimed everything as her own, and as she looked at me with a cold, indifferent stare, it was clear I didn't have a place in her new world. "You were adopted," she said, her words slicing through me like a knife. "You don't belong here. It's mine now." Those words felt like a punch to my chest. I tried to hold my ground, but the weight of her gaze made me feel small. "You're nothing but a guest here," she added, as if I had never been part of this family. I had been raised by these people, loved by them, but it didn't matter now. Megan had everything, and I had nothing. I had always thought our family was close, that the bonds between us would never break. But now, I could see the truth. Megan was never really family to me. She had always seen me as someone to be used, and now, she had made her move. She was going to take it all, and I was going to be left with nothing. I couldn't believe it. But there I was, standing in the house where I had spent so many years of my life, being told to leave. The house that held all my memories, my childhood, the love I had felt from my parents, was now being claimed by the one person I had trusted the most. It was hard to accept, but there was nothing I could do. Megan had already won. I stood there, frozen, unable to speak, as she turned her back and walked away, leaving me with the hollow echo of her footsteps. All I could do was watch her disappear into the house that no longer felt like home. The next few days were a blur of confusion and disbelief. I moved out of the house, but it didn't feel real. The place I had called home for so long now felt foreign, cold. I stayed with a friend for a while, trying to process everything, but no matter how many times I ran, the conversation in my head, it never made sense. How had Megan come to this? How had she become so cold, so calculating? She had always been the more dominant one, but I never thought she would turn on me like this. I had always tried to be a good sister, to support her, even when she made mistakes. But this was different. I was left with nothing. Megan had taken everything. Our parents' house, the memories, the inheritance. She had claimed it all, and I was just supposed to walk away. I felt like I was suffocating in the silence that followed. Every call I made, every step I took felt hollow. It was as if everything I had known had been stripped away. I couldn't understand how she could do this to me. I spent countless nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, asking myself what had gone wrong. I kept thinking of the years I spent growing up in that house, the holidays, the laughter around the dinner table, the way our parents had always made me feel like I belonged. But Megan's words echoed in my mind. "You're not a part of this family." Maybe that was always the truth, and I had been too blind to see it. It hurt more than I could express. I was supposed to be her family, but instead, I was discarded like I never mattered. It wasn't just about the house or the money. It was about the betrayal. The betrayal of someone I had trusted my whole life. I had always assumed that blood, family, meant something. But now I wasn't so sure. I tried to keep my distance from Megan after that, but it wasn't easy. Every time I saw her, she acted like nothing had happened. She smiled, went on with her life, while I was left picking up the pieces. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't about the house or the inheritance. This was about control, power, and manipulation. Megan had always felt like she had to win, to be the one in charge, but I never thought she would go this far. I tried to reach out to our parents' friends, hoping they would see the injustice in what Megan had done, but no one seemed to care. They all just accepted it. And that's when I realized I was alone, completely and utterly alone. But I couldn't stay like this forever. I had to do something. I had to fight for what was mine. But how could I? How could I fight someone who was always one step ahead? Days passed, and I tried to settle into the uncomfortable reality of my new life. I had no choice but to keep moving forward, but every step felt like I was walking through thick mud. My old life was slipping through my fingers, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I tried to find comfort in small things, taking long walks, calling old friends, but nothing felt the same. It was like everything had changed in an instant, and the world I once knew was no longer there. I couldn't keep hiding from the truth. Megan had taken the house, but that wasn't all. She had taken everything that mattered. I began to piece together what had happened, and with each memory that resurfaced, the pain in my chest grew heavier. I remembered how, as a child, Megan had always been the center of attention. Our parents had doted on her, and I had always been in her shadow. But I never imagined that would turn into something so cold, so calculating. The way she had dismissed me when I tried to confront her about the will, that was the breaking point. Her words, harsh and final, echoed in my mind. You're adopted. You don't belong here. How could she say that? How could she look me in the eye and dismiss everything I had ever known? I had spent years loving this family, supporting Megan, and now she was treating me like I was nothing. It wasn't just the house, the property, it was everything. The years of affection, the moments we shared, all of it was reduced to nothing. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't a simple family dispute. Megan had been playing a game, and I had been too naive to see it. She had carefully manipulated every situation, turning our parents' love into a weapon. It was clear now that I was never truly part of her plans. I needed answers. I couldn't let her get away with this. I couldn't let her strip me of everything I had left. I started gathering information, talking to anyone who might know something. I wasn't sure where to begin, but I knew I had to do something. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of determination. I had lost the house, I had lost my family, but I wasn't going to lose myself. It wasn't just about the money or the house anymore. It was about proving that I deserved more than what Megan had taken from me. But I also knew that this wouldn't be easy. Megan was smart, and she had already taken control of everything. But I wasn't giving up. I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I had to find a way to fight back, to take back what was rightfully mine. And this time, I wasn't going to be the silent sister standing in the background. I spent days going over everything. The memories, the letters, the photos. I sat at my small kitchen table, looking at the life I thought I knew, trying to find something that made sense. It was hard to believe that the woman I had shared my childhood with, the sister I had trusted, was capable of this kind of betrayal. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had been blind for so long. Megan had always been the golden child, the one everyone admired, the one our parents doted on. But I had never seen how far she would go to get what she wanted. It wasn't just the house. It wasn't just the money. It was everything. The power, the control, the way she made me feel invisible in my own family. I had tried to reach out, to talk to her, to make her understand how much this was hurting me. But every time, she shut me down. She dismissed my feelings like they didn't matter. She told me that I was adopted and that I was nothing more than a guest in the family. Her words haunted me, and they made me question everything. Was I really nothing more than a guest? Had I always been an outsider? I couldn't let this go on. I had to confront Megan. I couldn't live in her shadow any longer. But how could I? She had everything. She had the house, the inheritance, and the control. I had nothing but memories of a life I thought was mine. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I needed to find a way to stand up for myself. I couldn't let her get away with this. I needed to gather evidence, to show that I wasn't just the adopted child, that I had a right to what our parents had left behind. But where could I even start? I couldn't just walk up to her and demand answers. She would shut me down again. I had to be smart about this. I had to find a way to expose the truth without letting her know what I was doing. So, I began to quietly collect everything I could. I went through old family records, tried to find any legal documents that could help my case. I even reached out to family friends, hoping they might have some insight into what Megan was doing behind closed doors. The more I uncovered, the more I realized that Megan's actions weren't just about the house. They were about power, about control. She wanted to erase me from the family, to make me feel like I never belonged. And that's when I realized I couldn't let her win. I couldn't let her take everything without a fight. I had to be patient, to plan carefully, but most of all, I had to stay strong. I had to remind myself that I deserved more than this. I wasn't going to let Megan take everything I had worked for. I wasn't going to let her strip away my place in this family. Days turned into weeks, and I kept pushing forward. The weight of my past seemed to follow me like a shadow, but I refused to let it bury me. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep Megan's manipulation ran. She had always been the one to get everything she wanted, but now, she had crossed a line I couldn't ignore. I had been patient, tried to keep the peace, but this was different. This wasn't just about a house or money. It was about dignity, respect, and family. I could feel the anger building inside me, but I couldn't act rashly. I had to be smart. I had to think about what came next. The first step was talking to a lawyer. I didn't know what kind of legal options I had, but I knew I couldn't do this alone. After a few consultations, I learned that there was a possibility that Megan had made the will under false pretenses. It turned out there was something off about the way the will had been handled. It wasn't just a simple matter of inheritance. It was a matter of manipulation and greed. Megan had been playing the long game, using her position to push me aside, but now I had a chance to fight back. I felt a small glimmer of hope. It wasn't over yet. I could still take action, and I wasn't going to let her win. I started gathering everything I could. I collected every document, every conversation, and every piece of evidence that could prove that I had a claim to the inheritance. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about showing everyone that I wasn't some outsider, that I belonged here just as much as she did. As I pieced things together, I began to realize that this was more than just a family issue. It was about standing up for what was right. I wasn't going to let Megan push me out of my own family. She had already taken the house, but she wasn't going to take everything. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Megan was smart, calculating, and had the advantage of everything. But I had something she didn't: my voice, my strength, and the truth. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. The fight had just begun, and I was ready to see it through. There was no going back now. I had to take control of my own life, to reclaim what was rightfully mine. I wasn't going to stand in the shadows anymore. It had been weeks since I made the decision to fight back, and things were moving quickly now. I had met with the lawyers several times, each meeting bringing a new layer of clarity to the situation. The more we uncovered, the clearer it became that Megan had not only manipulated our parents, but had also gone to great lengths to ensure that I would be left out of the family's future. I had always believed that family would stick together no matter what, that blood would always be thicker than water. But now, I saw that I had been wrong. Megan was playing a game, and I had been her pawn. But not anymore. I wasn't going to let her win. I wasn't going to let her strip away everything I had left. My lawyer had managed to track down the original copy of the will, and after several calls to estate specialists, I found out that there was a clause I hadn't seen before. It wasn't in the version Megan had shown me. This clause stated that if any member of the family was intentionally excluded or wronged, they were entitled to contest the will. This was the break I needed. I knew I couldn't go to Megan with this information just yet. She would shut me down before I even had a chance to speak. Instead, I gathered my thoughts and continued to prepare. Every conversation I had with the lawyer, every document I filed, felt like one more step toward taking back my life. I wasn't just fighting for the house anymore. I was fighting for my place in the family, for my right to be treated with respect. Each day, I found myself growing stronger, more determined. I couldn't let Megan erase me, not when I knew the truth. But even with this new information, I couldn't shake the doubt that lingered in the back of my mind. Would Megan go to any lengths to stop me? I knew she wasn't above using any means necessary to keep the house, to keep her position in the family. But that only fueled my resolve. I had lost so much already. I had nothing left to lose, and everything to gain. The moment of confrontation was coming. It was inevitable. I could feel it building, like the calm before the storm. The idea of facing Megan again, after everything she had done, made my stomach turn. But I was ready to stand up for myself, for what was mine. I had spent too many years in the background, too many years letting Megan call the shots. Not anymore. It was my turn now, and I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine. The day I had been preparing for finally arrived. I had spent weeks gathering everything I could: documents, proof, conversations, anything that would give me the upper hand. Megan had no idea what was coming. I had made sure of that. The lawyer I had been working with was confident. We had a strong case, and I was ready to confront Megan, ready to finally take back what was rightfully mine. As I drove to her house, my heart raced. I wasn't sure what to expect. Would she try to turn the situation around? Would she try to make me feel guilty for standing up to her? I wasn't sure, but I knew I couldn't back down now. When I arrived at her front door, I took a deep breath and rang the bell. Megan opened the door, her usual confident smile quickly fading as she saw the serious expression on my face. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice laced with annoyance. I could see the defensive posture in her stance. She knew something was coming. "We need to talk," I said, stepping past her into the house. She didn't argue, but I could see the tension building in her. I wasn't here to make small talk. I was here to make sure she knew that I wasn't backing down. We sat down in the living room, the same room where we used to sit and have family dinners. and I placed the papers on the table in front of her. "What's this?" she asked, glancing at the stack of documents, her face going pale. "This is the will," I said calmly. "The real will." Megan's eyes widened, but she quickly regained her composure. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, trying to act nonchalant, but I could hear the shakiness in her voice. "I've seen it," I said. "I've seen the version you didn't want me to see. You can't keep me out of this family any longer. I'm not just the adopted child anymore. I have rights. And this house, it's as much mine as it is yours." I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the realization dawning that I had been gathering evidence, that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Megan looked at the papers, her face growing redder by the second. She opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again, unsure of how to respond. I had the truth on my side, and it was the only thing that mattered now. "You can't just push me out like this," I continued, my voice steady. "This house doesn't just belong to you. You manipulated everyone, including our parents. But I'm not going to let you erase me anymore. I'm not going to be your pawn any longer." Megan's eyes flickered with anger, but underneath it, I saw something else, fear. She knew she had crossed a line, and now, the consequences were coming. "You'll never win," she spat. But I wasn't afraid. I had waited too long for this moment. "We'll see about that," I said, standing up and gathering the papers. I turned to leave, but before I walked out the door, I looked back at her. "I'm not going anywhere. You can't take everything. Not anymore." The door closed behind me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of calm. This wasn't over, but I had finally taken the first step in regaining control of my life. Megan may have had the power for now, but I wasn't going to let her keep it. Not without a fight. The days following my confrontation with Megan felt different. I had taken the first step, and it felt like the weight I had carried for so long had been lifted, if only slightly. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but I knew I couldn't stop. The lawyer and I had gone over the documents several more times, and we were both certain now that there was a strong case to be made. Megan had been counting on me being quiet, on me not fighting back, but now she saw that I wasn't backing down. There was a fire in me that I hadn't realized existed, a determination I hadn't tapped into until now. Every time I thought about how she treated me, how she had pushed me out of the family, I felt more certain of my path. But there was still a long way to go. The legal battle was going to be tough. I knew Megan would fight me every step of the way. She had always been the one with the upper hand, the one with all the power. But things were different now. The next time I saw her, I wasn't sure how it would go. She was likely preparing for the fight, just like I was. She would try to undermine me, twist the truth, make me look like the villain. But I wasn't going to let her. I had learned enough to know how manipulative she could be, how she could turn people against me. With a smile and a few well-chosen words. But this time, it was different. This time, I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. I spent the next few weeks preparing. I kept all my meetings with the lawyer private, careful not to let Megan know what I was up to. The house was still hers for now, but I wasn't going to let her keep it forever. Every day, I worked harder to make sure I had everything I needed to take the next step. My resolve grew stronger with each passing day. I was ready to fight, and this time, I wasn't alone. I had the support of the lawyer, and I had my own sense of justice. But more than that, I had something that Megan didn't. The truth. The truth was on my side, and no amount of manipulation could change that. As I prepared for the next phase of this fight, I kept reminding myself why I was doing this. It wasn't about the house or the inheritance. It wasn't even about the money. It was about standing up for myself, for everything I had lost, and for everything I deserved. I was tired of being dismissed, tired of being told that I didn't matter. Megan had made me feel small for so long, but now, I was taking control. I wasn't going to let her take everything from me. The moment of truth was coming, and I was ready for it. The day of the hearing finally arrived, and the weight of it all was heavier than I ever imagined. As I walked into the courtroom, the realization hit me that this wasn't just about a house or inheritance. It was about proving that I wasn't invisible, that I mattered just as much as anyone else in this family. Megan was already there, sitting at the table with her lawyer, her posture as confident as ever. She barely looked up when I entered, but I could see the tension in her eyes. She knew this wasn't going to be as easy as she thought. I sat down at my own table, glancing at the stack of papers in front of me. It felt surreal. For so long, I had been the one pushed aside, dismissed, and now, here I was, fighting for what was rightfully mine. As the proceedings began, I listened closely as the lawyer presented the case. Megan's lawyer tried to undermine every point, to dismiss my claims, but I wasn't backing down. Every piece of evidence I had gathered, every conversation, every document, every memory, was now on display. The truth was coming out, and there was no way Megan could deny it. It felt like a slow burn, each moment building toward a resolution that was long overdue. I could feel the weight of the years of silence, of the things I had swallowed down, coming to a head. As the judge reviewed the documents, Megan's confidence began to waver. She tried to maintain her composure, but I could see the cracks starting to show. She knew I had the truth on my side, and that was something she could never take away. The judge spoke, his words cutting through the tension in the room. After reviewing the evidence presented, it is clear that the will was not properly executed, and the claims made by the defendant do not hold up. My heart skipped a beat as the words sank in. Megan was losing. She had tried to manipulate everything, but in the end, it wasn't enough. The judge continued. Therefore, the estate will be split as outlined in the revised will, which includes the rightful inheritance for the plaintiff. It was over. I had won. The weight that had been hanging over me for so long finally lifted. But even in that moment of victory, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. There was relief, yes, but there was also sadness. This wasn't just about money or property. It was about family, about the years that had been stolen from me. Megan didn't look at me as the decision was read aloud. She kept her eyes fixed on the table, her face flushed with frustration. I knew she wasn't going to take this lying down, but in that moment, it didn't matter. I had taken back my place. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The battle had been long, but I had finally taken control of my life. Megan might have thought she could push me out, but I wasn't going anywhere. This was my family, and I was finally getting what was mine.